guys.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk a little bit about big data, which is maybe the most boring possible two words we could combine. I guess big is interesting.
Big is interesting.
Yeah, data.
Boring.
Boring, yeah.
Yeah.
Big data, just confusing.
Well, slightly more interesting,
Slightly more interesting.
but pretty boring.
So I don't want to start by talking about big data at Groupon. I actually want to go back. Jason, you come to Groupon from Google. And so I'd love to get a little bit of your perspective on what it was like on the inside there and what you pulled from there.
Sure. And I'm not an engineer, so I'm probably not going to talk about big data per se, but I can talk about how big data played a role at Google. So I joined Google in June of 2005. So the company had been public for about a year. It was very clear they had a business model that worked. They were the leader in search. And so from my time there, about 6 years, a lot of the effort, particularly on the M&A side, was making the next bet. So at that time, Android was bought, and obviously that's become a big part of their mobile strategy. We bought YouTube. We tried something called Google Video. It didn't work, and so we bought the leader. We bought DoubleClick to get into display ads, and for those Chicago people, we bought FeedBurner because we liked Chicago. So I think there were a couple big lessons, and actually those things hold true here at Groupon too, so I'll relate those in a second. The first was the company had kind of a really big and virtuous mission to organize all the world's information and make it accessible, and they took that seriously, went so far as giving devices to people in sub-Saharan Africa. So they were very serious about the mission, and that was really inspiring to people. But to do that, they had to build products that were incredibly simple for people to use. So, you know, as I mentioned backstage, I think the trick was the big data was completely invisible to people. It was working in the background, but in the front you just had a white screen, or a reinvention of maps, or a reinvention of email. So they were constantly innovating and trying to improve the user experience for products that ultimately rested on their big data infrastructure. And they did so incredibly successfully, obviously. And then the second thing they did really well was building an incredible business model that was about leveling the playing field for the little guy. And AdWords was obviously the main business, and there's probably today 1 or 2 million small advertisers who really built their businesses on Google. Obviously, you have the big guys too, but the heart of it was making an advertising system that was really accessible to little people to know how to use. AdSense is another example of that. They allowed publishers who otherwise couldn't make money to make money by just putting a little piece of JavaScript on their page. And then they also were constantly investing in making their advertisers successful. So we bought something called, that became Google Analytics, which was a free analytics platform that otherwise didn't exist for small advertisers. And so giving away free tools to advertisers to help them run their business as well, I think was a big part of Google's success. And
I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is taking these data power tools, right, and bringing them and scaling them to individual users to some extent.
Absolutely.
And actually, you know, I mean, to me, one of the coolest parts about Google, and something that they do as well as anybody in the world, is they take very large, complicated data problems, and they find a way to create beautiful products that are incredibly simple. And through the simplification of data, you know, it might, and Twitter's another great example of that. But when things are distilled down into something that's almost invisible and just, you know, seamless and quiet, and almost, the kind of a product that anybody could use, it's intuitive. It feels like, oh, that could be easily replicated, right? It must not be that complicated. But it's actually often the most complicated process to take something that just has an incredible amount of analytical complexity and distill it into something as quiet and simple as a search box or, you know, a tweet. And so, you know, I think, you know, we strive to do the same. At times we've strived to do the same thing at Groupon, where we try to take something that feels simple, like a deal, you know, 10 for 20, one little deal. And yet there's an enormous amount of complexity and data in finding a way to take this universe of deals and this, almost an infinite number of permutations that could exist between a user and a merchant. Do I like Italian food or Chinese food? Do I like to go to, do I exercise via yoga or a spinning class? And when you just add up all the different permutations of local merchants that are out there, and then all the permutations of user interests, combining those into one little simple deal that hopefully is relevant to you when you open your email, is our version of that same kind of solution to a very complicated data problem.
Is that something you can advertise to a consumer, or is it just this is the experience? The experience is simple, it's tailored. Don't think about what we're doing, in the other room.
Yeah, at Google, the advertising was always thought to be the product itself, and if it was a great product, people would want to use it and tell their friends about it. And I do think that's true of all successful consumer internet companies. Groupon happened to advertise a lot to acquire subscribers in the early days because it was a network business, and we needed to have customers to send to our merchants to make the service work. But we get a tremendous amount of customer acquisition through virality, and people talk about Groupon and the impact it makes on their lives. And I think back to the point I made on Google and having a virtuous mission, we feel we have a virtuous mission too. It's nominally to be the operating system for local commerce, but what that really means is helping small merchants to get customers and helping people to discover great merchants and save money. And when you have a simple value proposition that affects the masses, people talk about that.
We were having this conversation on the way over. We came over with Bing, who you're going to hear, you'll meet in a few minutes. He's at Kleiner now, but he's also on the board of Amazon, and we were having this conversation about Amazon. And they also do just a masterful job of taking an incredibly complicated data problem, which is essentially they have, I don't even know the number, but hundreds of millions of SKUs, and finding a way to render a page to you that is actually relevant to you. So you're not seeing the same thing that I see. What most people don't realize is not only do we often see different pages when we go to Amazon, or a different representation of offers, but we also see different price. So, and we can see different price throughout the day, because Amazon's gotten that good at figuring out how to maximize yield both at a user level and at a price level.
So, big data can take things from complex to simple, from global to really personalized. But how has Groupon's approach changed to big data in the last even year, 6 months?
I mean, so our approach to big data, I think we have kind of rolled into needing to tackle the big. First of all, by the way, everyone talks about big data as if it's like this new phenomenon, right? It's like B2B software companies, like as if they didn't exist. Big data has been around for a long time. I mean, it's certainly since the microprocessor was invented. Even before that, people had big data problems that they solved with an army of statisticians, right? Even before there was computers. So, but the issue around big data for most companies of our scale, most technology companies of our scale, are having to tackle a new problem, which I think is really what is kind of layered behind this big data word. And what we're having to tackle, the problem we're all having to tackle, is that for the first time in history, not only is this data available, but there's now computational power that would allow somebody to mine the data in real time and create a different set of actions by virtue of that real-time analysis. And this is the new thing, right? That people have just kind of said, oh, that's big data. But so what does that mean for the average company, right? The challenge is, and I use this example, right? So if you think about Walmart, who's very good at figuring out how to open up giant big box stores and then put stuff in those stores. When you compare Walmart to Amazon, right? If you wanted to understand the big data comparison, you'd have to imagine a Walmart store, say it's 200,000 square feet, which means it's roughly 5 times the size of this room, okay? Now imagine that it's white, it's totally empty, there's nothing in it. And there's, let's say, 2 million customers running at the speed of sound, one after another, as the doors open, running through the store. And every time somebody's running at the speed of sound, Walmart would be putting different things in front of them. And every time they didn't buy, they'd be changing the things they put in front of them. And then having to do that for the person right behind, right? And if you said that to Walmart, they'd be like, that's impossible. But that's what Amazon does every minute of every day. And they do it by analyzing and storing an enormous amount of data and then making it actionable in real time. And as a result, they are a better e-commerce retailer than most other people. And so they grow because the experience you have when you go there is better. And so that, I think, is the big data challenge that Groupon's tackling as well. We've stumbled into it by virtue of the fact that we have all this data. We have over 200 million subscribers worldwide, and over 80 million people have bought something on Groupon, and so we now have to try to manage that data and make it actionable. It's a long-winded answer, but
if you could do anything with that data, what would it be? No technological restraints.
What would you do with it?
Two things. One, and this is what we're striving for every day. So we used to not have a big data problem because we ran one deal in your city a day. So the data was, do you want this deal or not? And now we have 2,000 deals in Chicago, probably 70,000 in the United States every day. So making sure that you can get the right deal in front of the right person at the right time is the first thing. And I think the second is we're also now providing a lot of tools to our merchants. And again, this is one of the similarities to Google and trying to empower our merchants to run their businesses better so that when we send them customers, they can be more successful. And so we have a point of sale product, and we have a payments product, and we have analytics for their business with Groupon. And as we're helping them collect more and more data about their own business, these are small businesses that don't have time. They don't have anybody who's going to sit there and manage an analytics console. So figuring out the most simple way to aggregate that data and make it consumable so they can actually do something with it is something we're going to have to figure out over time.
What's an example of something you could imagine a small business doing with an API that exists today or could exist tomorrow?
Yeah. You want to give an example?
Yeah, we're bouncing back and forth. If you can't see that, it's like a lobbying game. I think the thing that we hope that merchants will do, and we've begun this. We've talked about it historically. We call it the Groupon operating system, which essentially is this connectivity between local merchants and the Groupon platform. So the way to think about the Groupon platform is these hundreds of millions of subscribers and tens of millions of customers that every day interact with Groupon and are basically looking for some reason to explore a new local merchant. And the thing that pushes them to explore that new merchant is a deal, right? Some value. And what most people don't realize is that, and we now have surveyed over 3 million of our customers, which is a crazy number of customers to survey. And over 60% of the time, the people that we send to a merchant have never been there before, right? So we're the largest source of new customer acquisition for any local commerce, of any local commerce company out there. And what we really want to have happen is that there's this technological connectivity between local merchants and us, either through a phone or a tablet, by which they're plugged into the Groupon platform through a series of tools that we've given them. Redemption tools so that people can redeem Groupons easily, payment tools so people can process their payments without pulling out a credit card, and then point of sale tools so that we can help them run their business. And the thing that I would want to happen one day is that merchants basically show up to work, whether I'm running a pizza parlor or a massage, a place, or whatever my place of business is, and if things are slow or if I'm not getting the foot traffic I wanted, I could just press a button and I could essentially manage my yield and push deals out to the Groupon marketplace that my customers who are following me or looking for deals of my type could react to and say, oh, that's unbelievable. All of a sudden this great restaurant that I eat at once a month is 20% off tonight or 40% off. I'm going to go in and try it. And so that's the big, when we get that happening in mass, and when we get people that are checking Groupon all the time, then we change the game.
Do you want to automate that? I mean, can you have a guy who runs a mom and pop business?
It is automated.
Donuts? It's totally automated.
Totally automated. And all that technology exists today. So it's just a matter of adoption. I mean, all these tools exist today where merchants can press a button and drop deals into our marketplace. But getting merchants to use it and adopt it, and then getting customers to change the way they think of Groupon is not easy, right? Because our roots were we would send you one deal a day, and so many people still think of us as that company.
one critique I've heard about Groupon is it was great for my business in that it brought in 500 new people, but those people paid less, and then they didn't really come back, or they didn't tip as well, or any of these number of things. Do you think an online platform that keeps people connected more often to sort of tweaking their deal or something along those lines can help engagement long term for customers and businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the tool we give merchants today is a relatively simple one, and over time, and we've already started this, our intent is to give them more tools to basically create offers of different varieties, so that whatever their business objective is, hitting that button might mean I want to bring in everybody who came in last month but hasn't been back and give them a 10% off coupon, or reach everybody who's never come to my store but has been to my competitor's store. And so I think the more tools we can give them in a way that are simple to use, and the more formats, that will bring more merchants on board in ways that they want to participate, and it gives our customers more variety and choice. So one example of our first foray into a new deal type is something we call Reserve, which is it's a restaurant reservation product. You can make a reservation like you can an OpenTable, but you get anywhere from 15 to 40% off your check. You don't have to pay Groupon any money. You show up and the merchant will give you money off your bill. And the reason they're willing to do that is those times of day, they know they're going to have some empty tables. So they get to put those tables into our system, as Eric described, and our customers make reservations and show up and fill them.
What's also interesting is that, there was this, I think early on people thought, well, Groupon gives me a lot of customers, but they're not as good, or they must be looking for a deal. But our culture is just changing. I mean, the pervasive nature of coupon codes in today's day and age, the number of people who are comparing and shopping price online has turned almost everybody into a bargain hunter to some extent. And so it's not about somebody wanting a deal. Airlines give away deals all the time, as do hotels, on and on. It's really about, am I as a merchant able to get people to try my stuff, and will some percent of them come back? And clearly, Groupon is working for this vast array of merchants because our refeature rate is through the roof. We still get 30,000 inbound inquiries a month of people that want to be featured on Groupon that we say, we can't put you in the system right now. So, and people run these things over and over and over again. 75% of our merchants are now on Groupon all the time. Their deals never come off. And so if it wasn't working for them, they would just say, I'm going to go somewhere else.
One thing about big data is the customization's amazing, but as soon as a consumer feels that it's too customized, or that you've dug a little bit too deep into their psychology or their history, you can have a totally adverse effect. How do you avoid that?
I think there's a couple ways. One is you give the consumer the ability to explicitly tell you what they want, and that's through search and browse. And so if they're telling you what they want, there's nothing invasive about that. I think the things you're describing maybe are more pervasive on platforms where people are sharing a lot of personal information and feel like maybe that's potentially or actually being violated. We're selling things, and people want things that are relevant to them. So I don't think we necessarily have the issue where people are going to be creeped out that we put a pizza deal in front of them today because they bought pizza a month ago. It's not really all that telling about me as a person or something I don't want to feel like a company like Groupon knows.
So you feel like there's a safe distance. But what if I bought a very particular type of pizza with 3 toppings on one half of the pizza, 4 toppings on the other? I mean, could you offer me a Groupon on that specific pizza, or do you think that would be going too far?
It'd be a little weird, dude. It'd be a little weird.
Hey, I'm not running the company.
Depends what's on the pizza.
It'd be a little weird. First of all, we can't do it today, but it would be, I think, to Jason's point, our objective is, very similar to companies like Netflix or Amazon. Our objective is to, when you interact with Groupon, we want you to feel like you had a relevant experience, right? And that's the key word, is that we didn't waste your time. We didn't put a bunch of things in front of you that we missed the mark. And it's very tricky because the challenge with that is, you come in and you buy pizza, and so you might say, well, great, I'll just show them pizza over and over and over again. But then you get to the flip side, which is You're not showing me new stuff. You're not surprising and delighting me. You don't get the fact that I was in the mood for pizza last week, but this week I want.
I sue you because you made me really fat.
Yeah,
because you gave me all these
exactly.
pizza deals.
Yeah. So it's very tricky. It's tough to get that right and to manage sending you a bunch of stuff that's personal without being creepy and still finding a way to make it new and exciting.
Awesome. We're out of time. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.